Is it really realistic to make $125,000 in a year trading options? I received this email where basically I've got this person asking me if that's essentially doable to make $125,000 in trading. Is it something that we should strive to achieve? That's what we're going to see in this video. Essentially, in the email, that person was saying they're very new to options trading. They haven't really made any money from it yet, but they're watching hours of trainings around it. And that person stumbled upon my video where I was reacting to the Tasty Trade Rising Star segment, where we had this person sharing that they had earned $125,000, if I'm not mistaken, trading options in a year. And obviously, like probably anyone who's watching this video for the first time, or any video of someone earning money in trading, we're always wondering, can I also do this? Is that really a doable achievement? Maybe Tasty Trade is biased and they obviously want to show people winning money so as to promote this software. Maybe, you know, it's all a mirage. Maybe it's actually not existing. That's why I wanted to make this video, so as to answer that, essentially that email, and maybe you had the same questions in your mind. So let's see what I think about it. So first of all, if we have to answer the question, is it possible to make $125,000 trading options? The short answer is yes, but it depends. And it depends on some stuff. But if I had to give an answer either yes or no, I would say yes. But as I said, there are some caveats here. And here's the first one. First of all, it's going to heavily depend on how much capital you have. Because here's the thing, you know, it's way more likely that you're going to make $125,000 in a year if you're trading with, let's say, $800,000. If you have a capital already of $800,000 and you're trying to make 125, well, it's much more likely, I mean, it's highly likely that you're going to do it if you know how to trade and everything, blah, 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 compared to someone who would start with, let's say, $2,000. If you start with $2,000 and you ask me, is it possible that I'm going to make $125,000 this year? Well, the odds are against you, because it's a lot harder to generate a lot of money based on nothing. Because let's imagine, as I said, that you have $800,000 of capital to trade with. If, let's say that you, for example, generate a 20% return in a year, well, that return is $160,000, and that's a 20% return. That's doable. I mean, that's what I consider an achievable return trading options, 20%, for example. So you see that you wouldn't make 160 grand, and you would probably do it quite easily in a normal year. But if you have $2,000 of capital to start with, and you try to make 125,000, that's not at all the same thing, because you don't have the capital to trade options in the first place. You're going to have to take a lot of risks so as to make a lot of money based out of a small capital. That's how it works. And I always say in terms of odds and likelihood and probabilities. If you have a big capital, the probability of making $125,000, for example, is much higher than someone who would start with a lower capital. That's all it is. That's all about probabilities. So yes, it's possible to make $125,000, but it depends on the capital that you have in the first place. And not gonna lie, it's much easier to generate 125 grand if you already have a big capital in the first place. That's, you know, no question about it. And it's going to be, and on the other hand, as I said, it's going to be a lot harder if you have a small capital that you're just starting with. And essentially, you know, and on top of that, if you're just starting out and you have not necessarily experience, then yeah, it's going to be a lot harder. But, you know, as I said, I genuinely think that it's doable, and it's more a matter of time and compounding interest, and, you know, giving yourself enough time and years to try to train on trading options and also gather more capital, so this number becomes more and more achievable. Because I'm not gonna lie, when I started out trading options, I didn't have like capital. I just didn't, you know. And to be honest, it was a lot harder for me to trade with $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 than it is with 40 grand. The reason why is that when you're selling options, which is the main thing that I do, you need to have a lot more capital to start with. The barrier of entry is quite high, and it's quite hard to sell options when you only have $2,000, $3,000. It's much easier to sell options when you start going above the 20 grand, 25 grand mark. That's why I said that the capital that you have in the first place is a huge factor factor, and it's really what is going to determine is that number that you're targeting achievable or not. That's why I often talk in terms of returns, in terms of percentage, like 20% return on investment rather than a fixed number of dollars of money, because this is not telling the whole picture. If someone tells me that they're aiming for a 20% return in a year, that's something that you can relate to because that's much more comparable and benchmarked. For example, an 80% return year on year every single year, well, it's highly unlikely, but a 20%, I think it's doable. Anyway, you get my point. So that's why I said that the capital is playing an important part. But there is a second factor that honestly, now that I have a bit more experience, I've probably placed thousands of trades over the years, I can say this is a huge factor that is going to determine if you're capable or not of generating that type of returns, and it's how you're going to trade options. Because here's the thing, let's say that we are in 2021, you're only selling puts. Well, yeah, you're making great money and you can probably generate a lot of returns, a lot of money. It's amazing, but the market doesn't stay the same across years, and is going to change. So what happens if you're only selling puts and we're entering a year like 2022 where the S&P and all the other indexes are falling off a cliff? How is that going to happen? How are you going to make 125 grand if you're only selling puts? Depending on how you trade options and depending on the side of the trade that you're choosing, either if you're selling puts or calls, is going to determine your returns. And obviously, that's really a big factor here. And personally, I mostly sell short strangle. So essentially, I'm selling a put and I'm selling a call at the same time. So I'm essentially betting in both directions, and I'm going to manage my trade after that. That's a topic for another video, but the direction that you're choosing is obviously going to determine if you're right or wrong. And based on what the market's doing, your returns might vary. Because in 2021, for example, if you had sold calls, meaning that you're bearish, well, you're going to have a rough year. If you're only selling puts in 2021, well, you're having an amazing year. And it's the opposite that happens in a year like 2022. The people that sell calls, they're having a great year so far. And the people that sell puts, well, they're having a harder time right now than in the year like 2021. But that's just how this game works. So that's why I say it depends on how you're going to trade options, because it's not as simple as being like, all right, I'm going to make a 20% return year on year, and that's just only going to happen every single year. Well, I mean, it doesn't work like this, because how you trade options is going to determine how you're going to essentially achieve the results that you're achieving. And it's really a big factor in it. And obviously the third factor is how the market is behaving on a year-to-year basis. You see that, markets are changing. They're not staying the same across, all the years. Like, for example, a market like 2008, a market like 2009, 10, 11, etc., you see different setups each and every single year. Yes, you can see some patterns, but you see that it's not the same. Like a year like 2021 doesn't happen every single year. Otherwise, everyone would be a lot richer today. So you go through peaks and through, and you have to take this into account in your expectations about trading options and investing in general, because not every year is going to look the same. The right way, in my opinion, to see it, and that's how I mostly see it, is look at it in terms of really long term and averages. All right, across 10 years, I'm expecting to make, an average of 20% returns because XYZ, because I sell short strangles, I take advantage of both sides, and I'm managing my trades, etc., etc. I'd rather see it that way rather than I'm aiming for a dollar amount every single year, because that's just not going to happen because markets are changing. I hope it makes sense so far. I know that this is, obviously a very important subject when we're starting out. We're wondering how much money we can make, how much, what to expect, and it's completely fair. But see it that way. Anyone who invests in the market usually goes long, meaning that they're buying stock. And that's why also the stock market has that positive drift, because why would people have the risk of losing money when they buy stocks if it's not appreciating on a yearly basis? And when you're trading options, you can take advantage of all the different situations that happen in the market. Like if the market is falling, stockholders are having a hard time, but you as an option trader, you can sell calls and make really a lot of money like this. That is going to, at least diminish a bit the losses that you have on the long side. That's what is happening for me this year. My long trades, let's not talk about my long trades, but my short trades are doing great, obviously because the market is falling. So that's reducing the loss that I have on the long side. side. So you see that it's not like as straightforward as saying, all right, I'm gonna make $125,000 every single year. It doesn't really work like this. So a year you could make 250, another year maybe you're going to almost break even because the market was super rough. But on average, you can expect an average. That's how I see it, and how I think everyone should think about it, investing in general, not even just trading options, but buying stocks, etc., etc. Anyway, I hope it made sense. I know it's a big subject, and that's why I wanted to make a video. And I received that email because I know this is something that I've wondered myself when I started out, and hopefully, if you're starting out, that helps clarifying a bit the questions that you have. Don't hesitate to, send me emails if you have any questions. I'm always reading most of the stuff that I received. Also, just saying, I haven't made video for a month because I needed to have some time off the camera and trying to take a step back from YouTube to try to rethink a bit, what do I want to do on my channel. So if you have anything that you'd like me to do in particular on my YouTube channel, happy to have any suggestions. Don't hesitate to put them down below in the comments section, because I'm really trying to make content for what I think is useful for people in general that trade options, but I also want to document my process and see how I trade, what are the things I like doing, what are the mistakes that I do. So hopefully it's useful for everyone. So don't hesitate to put down any suggestions below of what you'd like to see on my channel. Please make good and informed decisions. I'll see you in the next video, and in the meantime, I wish you all the best.